Welcome again to my channel. Good morning, everyone. This is Trev from Trevessence, and today we are going to continue the reading of the book Spare, written by Prince Harry. For those of you who have been following me as we read this book, I am sincerely grateful, and I want to say thank you so much. And I hope you are enjoying the book as much as I am enjoying reading it for us. For those of you who are new into the channel, I want to say welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you have not yet hit that subscribe button, now is a good time to do so. And don't forget to turn on your notification bell so that whenever I upload a video, you'll be first to get notified. And to all my returning travelers, I want to say thank you for your continued support. Now, this morning, we are going to continue the reading. We are on to part 3 of the book. And so that means we are very close to the end of the book. In fact, we are at 88% of the book, which means we should be done in the next few days. So if you are new here, you might want to go back to the playlist, the Harry's Pair playlist, and listen to the previous chapters. Now, before we move on to chapter 64, I'm going to read the last paragraph of chapter 63. So those of you who weren't here yesterday, or those of you who were here yesterday, can at least catch on to where we are going. All right. Thank you all so much, guys, for coming. Let's begin. Everything had been taught, everything I'd grown up believing about the family and about the monarchy, about its essential fairness, its job of uniting rather than dividing, was being undermined, called into question. Was it all fake? Was it just a show? Because if we couldn't stand up for one another, rally around our newest member, our first biracial member, then what were we really? Was that a true constitutional monarchy? Was that a real family? Isn't defending each other the first rule of every family? Well, Harry, we knew all along, and you are just finding out. So, welcome into the live, sweet pea. How are you doing, my love? So good to see you. Fly girl Georgia, my sister from another mother. How are you doing, my love? So good to see you. Happy Thursday to you, my dear. Thank you so much, guys, for coming in. Thank you, sweet pea. Thank you so much, my dear. Now we are moving on to chapter 64. Meg and I moved our office into Buckingham Palace. We also moved into a new home. Frogmore was ready. Guys, as I speak about Frogmore just now, I don't know if any of you saw the article yesterday that came out that said the palace was evicting Meghan and Harry from Frogmore. I'm like, no, that's rich people's problem. But they're evicting them from Frogmore Cottage. Haven't they been living in California for a hot minute now? So I guess they still have their things there, and maybe when they go back to London, that's where they would expect to stay. Well, I saw an article yesterday that said that they were being evicted from Frogmore Cottage. I'm like, oh well. Oh well, let us continue. Meg and I moved our office into Buckingham Palace. We also moved into a new home. Frogmore was ready. We loved that place. From the first minute, it felt as if we were destined to live there. We couldn't wait to wake up in the morning, go for a long walk in the gardens, check in with the swans, especially Grumpy Steve. We met the Queen's gardeners, got to know their names and the names of all the flowers. They thrilled at how much we appreciated and praised their artistry. Amid all this change, we huddled with our new head of comms, Sarah. We plotted a new strategy with her, the centerpiece of which was having nothing whatsoever to do with the royal rota, and hoped we might soon be able to make a fresh start. Towards the end of April of 2019, days before Meg was due to give birth, Willie rang. I took the call in our new garden. Something had happened between him and Pa and Camilla. I couldn't get the whole story. He was talking too fast and was way too upset. He was seething, actually. I gathered that Pa and Camilla's people had planted a story or stories about him and Kate and the kids, and he wasn't going to take it anymore. Give Pa and Camilla an inch, he said, and they will take a mile. They have done this to me for the last time, he said. I got it. I got it. They had done the same thing to me and Meg as well. But it wasn't them. Technically, it was the most gung-ho member of Pa's comms team, a true believer who had devised and launched a new campaign of getting good press for Pa and Camilla at the expense of bad press for us. For some time, this person had been peddling unflattering stories, fake stories about the heir and the spare to all the papers. I suspected that this person had been the lone source for stories about a hunting trip I had made into Germany in 2017. Stories that made me out to be some fat-bottomed 17th century baron who craved blood and trophies, when in reality I was working with German farmers to cull wild boar and save their crops. I believe the story had been offered as a straight swap in exchange for greater access to power, and also as a reward for the suppression of stories about Camilla's son, did Camilla have a son? Who had been gadding around London generating tawdry rumors. Guys, you see what I'm saying? That the whole existence around that family, you got to be prepared for everything that comes with it. It's either that you are prepared to deal with it, or you are prepared for it to deal with you. But one way or the other, once you get into that family, be prepared. I was displeased about being used like this and livid about it being done to Meg, but I had to admit it was happening much more often lately to Willie, and he was justifiably incandescent. He had already confronted Pa once about this woman, face to face. I had gone along for moral support. The scene took place at Clarence's house in Pa's study. I remember the windows being wide open, the white curtains blowing in and out, so it must have been a warm night. Willie put it to Pa, "How can you be letting a stranger do this to your sons?" Pa instantly got upset. He began shouting that Willie was paranoid. We both were, just because we were getting bad press and he was getting good. That didn't mean his staff was behind it. But we had proof. Reporters inside actual newsrooms assuring us that this woman was selling us out. Pa refused to listen. His response was churlish, pathetic. Granny has her person. Who can't I have? Why can't I have mine? Oh, so you see that inside rivalry? Everybody's fighting for press. Everybody's fighting to be on top. What kind of a family is that? So doggone dysfunctional. E- Pa and Camilla are fighting to get press, and when Willie's in the press, they are upset. And when Meghan and Harry are in the press, they are mad because everybody's fighting for good press. Then, for the love of God and all things good, do something good so that you can get good press. Like, what? Anywho, let's continue. Pa refused to listen. His response was churlish, pathetic. Granny has her person. Why can't I have mine? By Granny's person, he meant Angela. That same Angela, his name is coming up again. Among the many services she performed for Granny, she was said to be skilled at planting stories. What a rubbish comparison, Willie said. Why would anyone in their right mind, let alone a grown man, want their own Angela? Oh my God. I think If you had to wait to be 76 years old or 78 years old for your mom to die for you to get a real job, I can understand when he said childish. I can understand. I can understand perfectly well. But anywho, let us continue. Now Pa wants his own Angela. But Pa just kept saying it. Granny had her person. Granny had her person. High time he had a person too. I was glad that Willie felt he could still come to me about Pa and Camilla, even after all we had been through recently. Seeing an opportunity to address our recent tensions, I tried to connect what Pa and Camilla had done to him with what the press had been doing to Meg. Willie swapped. Willie swapped. I've got different issues with you too. In a blink, he shifted all his rage onto me. I can't recall his exact words because I was beyond tired from all our fighting, to say nothing of the recent move into Frogmore and into new offices. And I was focused on the imminent birth of our first child. But I recall every physical detail of the scene. The daffodils out, the new grass sprouting, a jet taking off from Heathrow, heading west, unusually low, its engines making my chest vibrate. I remember thinking how remarkable that I could still hear Willie above that jet. I couldn't imagine how he had that much anger left after the confrontation in Notcott. He was going on and on and on, and I lost the thread. I couldn't understand, and I stopped trying. I fell silent, waiting for him to subside. Then I looked back. Meg was coming from the house, directly towards me. I quickly took the phone off speaker, but she had already heard, and Willie was being so loud, even with the speaker off, she could still hear. The tears in her eyes glistened in the spring sunshine. I started to say something, but she stopped, shook her head. Holding her stomach, she turned and walked back to the house. Chapter 65. I don't know what to say. So I'm just going to continue reading, my friends. Chapter 65. Doria was staying with us, waiting for the baby to come. Neither she nor Meg ever strayed far. None of us did. We all just sat around waiting, going for the occasional walk, looking at the cows. When Meg was a week past her due date, the comms team and the palace began pressuring me. When's the baby coming? The press can't wait forever, you know. Oh, the press is getting frustrated? Heaven forbid! Megan's doctor had tried several homeopathic ways to get things moving, but our little visitor was just intent on staying put. I don't remember if we ever tried Granny's suggestion of a bumpy car ride. Finally, we said, let's just go and make sure nothing's wrong, and let's be prepared in case the doctor says it's time. We got into a nondescript people carrier and crept away from Frogmore without alerting any of the journalists stationed at the gates. It was the last sort of vehicle that they suspected we'd be riding in. A short time later, we arrived at the Portland Hospital and were spirited into a secret lift, then into a private room. Our doctor walked in, talked it through with us, and said it was time to induce. Now she's having a baby. Meg was calm. I was calm too, but I saw two ways of enhancing my calm. One, Nando's chicken, brought by our bodyguards. Two, a canister of laughing gas beside Meg's bed. I took several slow, penetrating hits. Meg bouncing on a giant purple ball, a proven way of giving nature a push, laughed and rolled her eyes. I took several more hits, and now I was bouncing too. When her contractions began, I quick when when her contractions began to quicken, to quicken and deepen. A nurse came and tried to give some laughing gas to Meg. There was none left. The nurse looked at the tank, looked at me, and I could see the thought slowly dawning. Gracious, the husband has had it all. Welcome into the live, my friend. Thank you all so much for stopping by. Thank you all so much for listening to me read the book Spare. I hope you are enjoying the book as much as I am enjoying reading it for us. Thank you all so much, my friends. If you are new here, a very special welcome to you. If you have not yet hit that subscribe button, now is a great time to do so. Harry and Meghan are at the hospital waiting for baby Archie. Let's continue. Sorry, I said meekly. Meg laughed. The nurse had to laugh and quickly changed the canister. Meg climbed into a bath. I turned on soothing music. Diva Premal. She remixed Sanskrit mantra into soulful hymns. Premal claimed she heard her first mantra in the womb, chanted by her father, and when he was dying, she chanted the same mantra to him. Powerful stuff, isn't it? Harry getting, can you imagine Harry getting the laughing gas instead of Meghan getting it? He is too much. Let's continue. In our overnight bag, we had the same electric candles I had arranged in the garden the night I proposed. Now, I placed them around the hospital room. I also set a framed photo of my mother on a littered table. Meg's idea. Oh my God, guys, I'm just seeing that scene. All the candles and his mama's picture. And you know, his mama was so radiant and so eternally beautiful. Oh my. Let's move on. Time passed. Hour melted into hour. Minimal dilation. Meg was doing a lot of deep breathing for pain. Then the deep breathing stopped working. She was in so much pain that she needed an epidural. The anesthesiologist hurried in. Off went the music. On went the lights. Wow! Vibe change. He gave her an injection at the base of her spine. Still, the pain didn't let up. The medicine apparently wasn't getting where it needed to go. He came back, did it again. Now things both quickened and accelerated. Her doctor came back 2 hours later, slipped both hands into a pair of rubber gloves. This is it, everybody. Oh, I stationed myself at the head of the bed, holding Meg's hand, encouraging her. Push, my love. Push. Breathe. Oh my gosh. The doctor gave Meg a small hand mirror. I tried not to look, but I had to. I glanced, saw a reflection of the baby's head emerging. Stuck, tangled. Oh no, please. No. The doctor looked up, her mouth set in a particular way. Things were getting serious. Things were getting serious. It's the birth of a baby. That is no joke. That is a very serious matter. All hands have to be on deck and ready for the eventualities and the possibilities that could happen during the birthing process. Let's continue. I said to Meg, my love, I need you to push. I didn't tell her why. I didn't tell her about the cord. Didn't tell her about the likelihood of an emergency C-section. I just said, give me everything you've got, darling. Give me everything you've got. And she did. I saw the little face, the tiny neck and chest and arms, wriggling, writhing. Life, life, amazing, I thought. Wow, it really all begins with a struggle for freedom. Ah! Oh my gosh, I can see that moment. A nurse swept the baby into a towel and placed him on Meg's chest, and we both cried to see him, to meet him. A healthy little boy, and he was here. Finally, he was here. Our Ayurvedic doctor had advised us that in the first minute of life, A baby absorbs everything said to them. So whisper to the baby. Tell the baby your wish for him, your love. Tell the baby how much you love him. We told him. We told him. I don't remember phoning anyone, texting them. I remember watching the nurses run tests on my hour-old son, and then we were out of there, into the lift, into the underground car park, into the people carrier, and gone. An hour? What? Who leaves the hospital in an hour? Oh, okay. Within 2 hours of our son being born, we were back at Frogmore. Hey, anybody else left the hospital within 2 hours? I guess they're going to now have home care rather than being cared for in the hospital. Wow. 2 hours after I give birth, I can't even walk. I can barely walk. Boy, girl, you strong. Mm-mm. They would have to pick me up, lift me up, put me on a stretcher and haul me out. I could not. Mm-mm. Oh well. Let us continue. Within 2 hours of our son being born, we were back at Frogmore. The sun had risen, and we were behind closed doors before the office announcement was released. Saying Meg had gone into labor. That's what I'm saying, Sweet Pea. I don't know how she was able to get up, just have a baby, get up, and be back home in 2 hours. Wow. I give it to her. She got that one. Let us continue. Saying Meg had gone into labor? I had a tip with Sarah about that. You know she's not in labor anymore, I said. She explained that the press must be given the dramatic, suspenseful story they demanded. But it's not true, I said. Oh, truth doesn't matter. Keeping people tuned to the show, that was the thing. After a few hours, I was standing outside the stables at Windsor, telling the world, it's a boy. Days later, we announced the name to the world, Archie. The papers were incensed. They said we had pulled a fast one on them. Indeed, we had. They felt that in doing so, we had been bad partners. They tricked them. Well, our ancestors did it less and went back to the fields the next day. You know that's true, Sweet Pea. That is so true. Our ancestors didn't have time to lay around in bed. And many of them, even if they weren't feeling well and wanted to lay around in bed a little bit more, the masters would not have allowed them. My lovely Joseph, Joseph in the front of the class, how are you doing, my darling? How are you doing, my love? So good to see you. Thank you so much for checking in. It's Thursday. Welcome, welcome into the morning live. We are continuing to read the book Spare, written by Prince Harry. We are now on to part three of the book. Actually, we are 89% into the book. And now Archie is born. For those of you who are just coming, Archie is born. So let us continue. The papers were incensed. They said we had pulled a fast one on them. Indeed, we had. They felt that in doing so, we had been bad partners. Astonishing. Oh my gosh, Ari is something else, I tell you guys. Did they think of us as partners? Did they really expect special consideration, preferential treatment, given how they had treated us these last 3 years? And then they showed the world what kind of partners they really were. A BBC radio presenter posted a photo on his social media, a man and a woman holding hands with a chimpanzee. What? The caption read, Royal baby leaves hospital. Really? Really? A BBC radio presenter posted a photo on his social media of a man and a woman holding hands with a chimpanzee. The caption read, Royal baby leaves hospital. You see how vile these people are? And then people want to convince me that, oh, racism is no longer existence and all of this. I beg you, please, don't even try to convince me because these vile creatures still exist. They live among us. They act undercover. They act undercover. And because they know that being blatant with it, even though some of them still are, but even though, but because they know that being the blatancy of their expressions these days could land them in trouble, could get them cancelled and all of that, they might try to subdue it a little bit. But I can spot it a mile away. I see it, I feel it, I know it. It's there. There are these people who feel like they are entitled, like people got no place in this world. They can harass us and they can do the wickedest and cruelest things. And you know what? They're always the first ones to cry and act as though they are the ones who have been hurt. They are the ones who have been in. Gosh, I don't hate people, but when I see racist and racism raise its ugly head, I I see those people who perpetrate such acts, such despicable creatures. I can no longer sit and have tea with you. Now, demons, devils. But anyway, let me not get too carried away. Let's just continue. Because I want to know what happened to this person. Oh, yes, sweet pea, they always cry and act like they are the victims. Let's continue. We are on to chapter 66. I see Sister Winsome in the place. Good morning, my sweetheart. How are you doing? So good to see you, my sister. Let us move on. Don't forget to hit the like button, guys. If you haven't hit it coming in, don't forget to hit it on your way out. Chapter 66. I had a long tea with Granny just before she left for Balmoral. I gave her a recap, all the latest. She knew a bit, but I was filling in important gaps. She looked shocked. Appalling, she said. She vowed to send the bee to talk to us. I'd spent my life dealing with courtiers, scores of them, but now I dealt mostly with just three, all middle-aged white men who had managed to consolidate power through a series of bold Machiavellian maneuvers. They had normal names, exceedingly British names, but they sort more easily into zoological categories: the bee, the fly, and the wasp. To think Granny's no longer here, ain't she want no better? Anywho, the bee was oval-faced and fuzzy and tended to glide around with great equanimity and poise, as if he was a boon to all living things. He was so poised that people didn't fear him. Big mistake. Sometimes their last mistake. The fly had spent much of his career adjacent to, and indeed drawn to, shit. The offal of government and media, the wormy entrails, he loved it, grew fat on it, rubbed his hands in glee over it, though he pretended otherwise. He strove to give off an air of casualness, of being above the fray, coolly efficient, and ever helpful. You all ever been around those people? Yeah, they act like they're so innocent, like they're doing great. Like, oh my God, as a nurse, I've seen them I see them all the time. Like they are doing the most, like they are just the best thing around. And in fact, they are the devil. Here is Ari perfectly describing one of them. The wasp, on the other hand, was lanky, charming, arrogant, a ball of jazzy energy. He was great at pretending to be polite, even servile. You'd assert a fact, something seemingly incontrovertible. I believe the sun rises in the mornings, and he'd stammer that perchance you might consider for a moment the possibility that you had been misinformed. Well, ha ha, I don't know about that, Your Royal Highness. You see, it all depends what you mean by mornings, sir. Oh, sweet pea. Oh, yes. CCP says, yeah, right here on YT. Girl, let me tell you. For sure. For sure. Right here on Sweet Pea. There, right here on YT. There are people who will act like they're with you. They're cheering for you. But it's all an act. Behind you. If you see some of the text that they would send to others about you, you would shit your trousers. But that's how people are. You find it in schools, you find it in the workplace, you find it in any social gathering. You are going to find it. So we just rise above it and live our lives the way we choose. That's it. Let us continue. Because he seemed so weedy, so self effacing, you might be tempted to push back. Instead, insist on your point, and that was when he'd put you on his list. A short time later, without warning, he'd give you such a stab with his oversized stinger that you'd cry out in confusion. Where the fuck did that come from? I disliked these men, and they didn't have any use for me. They considered me irrelevant at best, stupid at worst. Above all, they knew how I saw them as usurpers. Deep down, I feared that each man felt himself to be the one true monarch, that each was taking advantage of a queen in her 90s, enjoying his influential position while merely appearing to serve. I had come to this conclusion through cold, hard experience. For instance, Meg and I had consulted with the WASP about the press, and he'd agreed that the situation was abominable, that it needed to be stopped before someone got hurt. Yes, you've got no argument from us on that. He suggested the palace convene a summit on all the major editors, making our case to them. Finally, I said to Meg, someone gets it. We never heard from him again. He just tricked you into believing. Harry and Meghan, he just tricked you into believing that he was on your side, that he was going to be doing something on your behalf. Uh-oh, that was just a trick. So I was skeptical when Granny offered to send us the bee, but I told myself to keep an open mind. Maybe this time would be different, because this time Granny was dispatching him personally. Days later, Meg and I welcomed the bee into Frogmore, made him comfortable in our new sitting room, offered him a glass of rosé, gave a detailed presentation. He took meticulous notes, frequently putting a hand over his mouth and shaking his head. He had seen the headlines, he had said, but he had not appreciated the full impact this might have on a young couple. This deluge of hate and lies was unprecedented in British history, he said, disproportionate to anything I've ever seen. Thank you, we said. Thank you for seeing it. He promised to discuss the matter with all the necessary parties and get back to us soon with an action plan, a set of concrete solutions. We never heard from him again. He was being true to himself, guys. Cooking breakfast now, so I will listen, enjoy the storytelling, of course, especially with feeling and expression, comfortable pitch and volume. Thank you so much, my darling. Thank you so much. I'm trying. I try my best. Oh my God. Let us move on. Let us move on to chapter 67. Wow, guys, we got only 10% of the book left. Chapter 67. Meg and I were on the phone with Elton John and his husband David, and we confessed we need help. We're sort of losing it here, guys. Come to us, Elton said, by which he meant their home in France. It was summer, 2019. So we did. For a few days, we sat on their terrace and soaked up their sunshine. We spent long, healing moments gazing out at the Azure Sea, and it felt decadent, not just because of the luxurious setting. Freedom of any kind, in any measure, had come to feel like scandalous luxury. To be out of the fishbowl for even an afternoon felt like day release from prison. One afternoon, we took a scooter ride with David around the local bay, down the coastal road. I was driving, Meg was on the back, and she threw out her arms and shouted for joy as we zoomed through little towns, smelt people's dinners from open windows, waved to children playing in their gardens. They all waved back and smiled. They didn't know us. The best part of the visit was watching Elton and David and their two boys fall in love with Archie. Often I'd catch Elton studying Archie's face, and I knew what he was thinking. Mummy. I knew because it happened so often to me as well. Time and time again, I'd see an expression cross Archie's face, and it would bring me up short. I nearly said so to Elton. To Elton. How much I wished my mommy would hold her grandson. How often it happened that, while hugging Archie, I felt her or wanted to. Every hug tinged with nostalgia, every tuck in touched with grief. Oh my gosh. I can't imagine that if there is any such a thing as a spirit in the spirit world, that his mommy's spirit is dwelling around him and supporting him and probably guiding him to in the decisions he's making. Because, my golly, those were the same decisions she had to make. She had to either get along with the family or get out. And then after the divorce, she had to continue with her life. And she had to rebel against them wanting to control her life. And here is her child feeling the same way. Let's move on. Does anything bring you face to face with the past, like parenthood? I don't know. I'm a mother, but I don't know. Courtian, how are you doing? Good to see you. Good morning, my love. How are you? Good to see you. Thank you so much for coming. On the last night, we were all experiencing that familiar end of holiday malaise. Why can't it be like this forever? We were drifting from the terrace to the pool and back again. Elton offering cocktails, David and I chatting about the news and the sorry state of the press and what it meant for the state of Britain. We got onto books. David mentioned Elton's memoir, at which he had been toiling for years. It was finally done, and Elton was mighty proud of it. And the publication date was drawing near. Bravo, Elton! Bravo! Elton mentioned that it was going to be serialized. Is that so? Yes. Daily Mail. He saw my face. He quickly looked away. Elton, how is it? How in the absolute world? I want people to read it, he said. But Elton, the very people who have made your life miserable? Exactly. Who better to excerpt it? Where better than the very newspaper that's been so poisonous to me my whole life? Who better? I don't understand. It was a warm night, so I'd already been sweating, and I was not about to continue that conversation. But now beads were dripping off my forehead. I reminded him of the specific lies the Mail had famously printed about him. Hell, he had sued them just over a decade earlier, after they claimed he forbade people at a charity event from speaking to him. So you see how they can sue for any little thing? You know how many lies people told on me? I should be in and out of the courtrooms every day, don't you think, guys? I don't know. I should be. And I should be rich by now. For all the lies that been told on me. But Trev, calm down. You're not royalty. And you're definitely not Elton John. But anywho, let's continue. Let's continue. They had ultimately written him a check for £100,000. Damn, £100,000 just for them having told a lie on him. I reminded him that he had stirringly said in one interview, they can say I'm a fat old, well, that's a C. He didn't finish the word. The word. They can say I'm an untalented bastard. They can call me a poof, but they mustn't lie about me. He didn't have an answer, but I didn't push it. I loved him. I'll always love him. And I also didn't want to spoil the holiday. What was that song Elton, I keep saying Elton John wrote for his mom again? The Candle in the Wind. Y'all remember that song? Anywho, I don't remember it right now, but I remember The Candle in the Wind. Anyway, we're moving on to chapter 68 of part 3. It felt glorious to watch an entire country fall in love with my wife. South Africa, that is. September 2019. Another foreign tour representing the Queen and another triumph. From Cape Town to Johannesburg, people couldn't get enough of Meg. We both felt a bit more confident, therefore a bit more courageous, just days before our return home, when we strapped on a battle armor and announced that we were suing 3 of the 4 British tabloids, including the one that printed Meg's letter to her father, over their disgraceful conduct and over their long-standing practice of hacking into people's phones. It was partially down to Elton and David. At the end of our recent visit, they had introduced us to a barrister, an acquaintance of theirs, a lovely fellow who knew more about the phone hacking scandal than anyone I'd ever met. He had shared with me his expertise, plus loads of open court evidence. And when I told him I wished there was something I could do with it, when I complained that we had been blocked at every turn by the palace, he offered a breathtakingly elegant workaround. Why not hire your own lawyer? I stammered. You mean, are you telling me we could just hire a lawyer? What a thought! It had never occurred to me. I'd been so conditioned to do as I was told. Chapter 69. I rang Granny to tell her beforehand, Pa too, and I sent Willie a text. I also told the B, giving him advance notice of the lawsuit, letting him know we had a statement ready to go, asking him to please redirect to our office all the press inquiries it would inevitably trigger. He wished us luck. It was amusing, therefore, when I heard that he and Wasp were claiming we have had no advance warning. Oh my God. Oh my God. You see how people can switch on you guys? You see how people can switch on you? I don't understand why some people are even saying that Harry is lying. This is Harry's truth. This is Harry's truth. This is Harry writing about his experience. And you can't blame somebody for exposing their experiences because their experience should trump what you believe or what you think you believe. Here we go again. In announcing the lawsuit, I laid out my case to the world. My wife has become one of the latest victims of a British tabloid press that wages campaigns against individuals with no thought of the consequences. A ruthless campaign that has escalated over the past year throughout her pregnancy and while raising our newborn son. I cannot begin to describe how painful it has been. Though this action may not be the safe one, It is the right one, because my deepest fear is history repeating itself. I lost my mother, and now I watch my wife falling victim to the same powerful forces. The lawsuit wasn't covered as widely as, say, Meg's daring to shut her own car door. In fact, it was barely covered at all. Nonetheless, friends took note. Many texted, "Why now?" Simple. In a few days, the privacy laws in Britain were going to change in the tabloids' favor. We wanted our case to be heard before a crooked bat was introduced into the game. Friends also ask, why sue at all when you are riding so high in the press? The South Africa tour was a triumph. Coverage was widely positive. That's the whole point, I explained. This isn't about wanting or needing good press. It's about not letting people get away with abuse and lies, especially the kind of lies that can destroy innocence. Maybe I sounded a bit self righteous. Maybe I sounded as if I was on my high horse. But shortly after announcing our lawsuit, I felt energized by a ghastly story in the Express. How Meghan Markle's flowers may have put Princess Charlotte's life at risk. Oh dear God, these people are really something else. This latest quote unquote scandal concerned the flower crowns worn by our bridesmaid more than a year earlier. Included in the crowns were a few lilies of the valley, which can be poisonous to children, provided the children eat the lilies. Even then, the reaction would be discomfort, concerning to the parents, but only in the rarest cases would such a thing be fatal. Never mind that an official florist put together these crowns. Never mind that it wasn't Meg who made this quote unquote dangerous decision. Never mind that previous royal brides, including Kate and my mother, had also used lilies of the valley. Never mind at all. The story of Megan the murderess was just too good. An accompanying photo showed my poor little niece wearing her crown, face contorted in a paroxysm of agony or a sneeze. Alongside this photo was a shot of Meg looking sublimely unconcerned about the imminent death of this angelic child. Boy, I tell you, my friends, these people, these people are just, I mean, what can I say? But they're just the worst. That's the best way to say it. They're just the worst. Those British tabloids. And I never thought about it before that the tabloids in Britain were actually working with the palace. I never thought of it until I started reading this book and realized it. Let's move on to chapter 70. I was summoned to Buckingham Palace. A lunch with Granny and Pa. The invitation was contained in a tense email from the Bee, and the tone wasn't, "Would you mind popping around?" It was more, "Get your ass over here, Harry." I threw on a suit, jumped into the car. The Bee and the Wasp were the first faces I saw when I walked into the room. An ambush? I thought this was to be a family lunch. Apparently not. Alone, without my staff, without Meg, I was confronted directly about my legal action. My father said it was massively damaging to the reputation of the family. How so? It makes our relationship with the media complicated. Complicated? There's a word? Anything you do affects the whole family. One could say the same about all your actions and decisions. They affect us as well. Like, for instance, winning. Like, for instance, whining and dining the same editors and journalists who have been attacking me and my wife. The bee or the wasp jump in to remind me one has to have a relationship with the press, sir. We have talked about this before. A relationship, yes, but not a sordid affair. I tried a new tack. Everyone in this family has sued the press, including me. Why is this an offense? Why is this any different? Chirping crickets. Silence. There was some more wrangling, and then I said, we had no other option, and we wouldn't have had to do it if you all had done something to protect us and protected the monarchy in the press. You are doing a disservice to yourself by not protecting my wife. I looked around the table. Stony faces. Was it incomprehension? Cognitive dissonance? A long-term mission at play? Or did they really not know? Were they so deep inside a bubble that they really hadn't fully appreciated how bad things were? What was going on? For instance, Tatler magazine quoting an old Etonian saying had married Meg because foreigners like her are easier than girls with the right background. What a piece of rankiness, people. To say that the man married Megan because she would be easier to handle than foreigner. What? Than girls with the right background. That means a British girl would be a girl with the right background. But Megan is, these people are so sordid, it is not even funny. Or the Daily Mail saying Meg was upwardly mobile. Oh my God. Because she had gone from slaves to royalty in just 150 years. Wanna see how fresh them be? And we were royalty before they ever knew what royalty meant. We were kings and queens and princes and princesses. And they came and they stole that. And they took it as their own. And now they have the gall, they have the audacity to be talking about a black woman going from being a slave to royalty. Oh, the impertinence is just beyond me. And people continue to look up highly and talk about monarchy and talk like really, people? Really? Really? Oh, let us continue before I get ahead of myself here. Or the social media post about her being a yacht girl and an escort, or calling her a gold digger and a whore and a bitch and a slut and the N word repeatedly. Some of those posts were in the comment section on the pages of all three palaces' social media accounts and still hadn't been expunged. That is true. That is true. People were putting these responses there and they weren't being removed. That means if you're not removing it, you agree with it. You agree with it. Or the tweet that said, Dear Duchess, I'm not saying that I hate you, but I hope your next period happens in a shark tank. What? What? Her next period happens in a shark tank. You mean you hope a shark would eat her? That means her blood would spill in a shark tank? Oh my God. Let us continue, my lovely people. Or the revelation of racist text from Jo Marney, girlfriend of UKIP leader Henry Bolton, including one saying that my Black American fiance would take the royal family, setting the stage for a Black king. You all are so full of, I don't know why. And another averting that Miss Marney would never have sex with a Negro. Yes, Sweet Pea. They never spoke out about it. They never filed a lawsuit about it. They never removed all the bad press. They did nothing. They sat back in silence, and I believe that they were laughing in their hearts and saying, yeah, we will not write it ourselves, but we will cheer it on in the background. Exactly. That's exactly what they were saying. Yeah. Because when the press said lies about Granny, Granny sued them. When the press said lies about um their dad, he sued them. Sometimes I can't even remember his name. I don't even want to remember Charles sometimes. Believe me, guys. But Harry was not allowed to sue because he was overstepping his bounds. He was on a high horse. How dare you sue when you have already brought the palace in disrepute by having married a Negro? They're so full of it. Get out of here, people. Let us continue. This is Britain, they said, not Africa. Or the male complaining that Meg couldn't keep her hands off her baby bump, that she was rubbing it as if she were a succubus. Which mother doesn't rub their belly? Oh my God. Things that got so out of hand. 72 women in parliament from both main parties had condemned the colonial undertones of all newspaper coverage of the Duchess of Sussex. None of these things had merited one comment, public or private, from my family. Yes, sweet pea. So it was okay for Granny to marry her cousin and no press. Exactly. Yes, because that's what the family is about. Anyway, but welcome into the live, guys. There is currently 12 million people in the house. Don't forget to hit that like button. I hope you all are enjoying the reading as much as I am enjoying reading it for us. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Those of you who are commenting in the chat, and those of you who are silent listeners, thank you so much. Let us continue. Things as things had got so out of hand. 72 women in parliament from both main parties had condemned the colonial undertones of all newspaper coverage of the Duchess of Sussex. None of these things had merited one comment, public or private, from my family. I knew how they rationalized it all, saying it was no different from what Camilla got or Kate. But it was different. One study looked closely at 400 vile texts about Meg. Employing a team of data specialists and computer analysts, the study found that this avalanche of hate was widely atypical, light years from anything directed at Camilla or Kate. A tweet calling Meg the Queen of Monkeyland had no historical precedent or equivalent. And this wasn't about hurt feelings or bruised egos. Hate had physical effects. There was a ton of science showing how unhealthy it is to be publicly hated and mocked. Meanwhile, the wider societal effects were even scarier. Certain kinds of people are more susceptible to such hate and incited by it. Hence, the package of suspicion, white powder. Oh my God. Guys, you have to forgive me. I'm reading and I'm thinking and I'm reading ahead of myself. Calm down, Trev. Get it together. Get it together. And this wasn't about hurt feelings or bruised egos. Hate had physical effects. There was a ton of science showing how unhealthy it is to be publicly hated and mocked. Meanwhile, the wider societal effects were even scarier. Certain kinds of people are more susceptible to such hate and incited by it. Hence the package of suspicious white powder that had been sent to our office with a disgusting racist note attached. Oh, I didn't know they were sent white powder as well. Oh, Jehovah to the Lamb. I looked at Granny, looked around the room, reminded them that Meg and I had been coping with a wholly unique situation and doing it all by ourselves. Our dedicated staff was too small, too young, grossly underfunded. The bee and the wasp harumphed and said we should have let it be known that we were under-resourced. Let it be known? I said I'd begged them repeatedly, all of them, and one of our top aides had sent in pleads as well, multiple times. Granny looked directly at the bee and the wasp. Is this true? The bee looked her right in the eye, and with the wasp nodding vigorously in assent, said, Your Majesty, we never received any of these requests for support. On a year of people wicked and lie. Wasn't it in one of the previous chapters where Harry said that he had request where he had spoken to one of those people, I think it was the bee where he had invited over, and the bee said he understood and took meticulous notes. Now, here is the bee saying, Your Majesty, we never received any of these requests for support. You know, see how people wicked and lie? Let us continue. This is going to be our last chapter for the day. We are going to be reading chapter 71 of part 3. Meg and I attended the Well Child Awards, an annual event that honored children suffering from serious illnesses. It was October 2019. I had attended many times through the years, having been a royal patron of the organization since 2007, and it was always gutting. The children were so brave, their parents so proud and tortured. Various awards were given that night for inspiration, fortitude, and I was presenting one to an especially resilient preschooler. I walked on stage, began my brief remarks, and caught sight of Meg's face. I thought back to a year ago when she and I attended this event just weeks after taking that home pregnancy test. We had been filled with hope and worry like all expectant parents, and now we had a healthy little boy at home. But these parents and children hadn't been so lucky. Gratitude and sympathy converged in my heart, and I choked up. Unable to get the words out, I held the lectern. I held the lectern tight and leaned forward. The presenter, who had been a friend of my mother, stepped over and gave my shoulder a rub. It helped, as did the burst of applause, which gave me a moment to restart my vocal cords. Soon thereafter, I got a text from Willie. He was in Pakistan on tour. He said I was clearly struggling and he was worried about me. I thanked him for his concern, assured him that I was fine. I had become emotional in front of a room full of sick kids and their folks just after becoming a father myself. Nothing abnormal in that. He said I wasn't well. He said again that I needed help. I reminded him that I was doing therapy. In fact, he had recently told me he wanted to accompany me to a session because he suspected I was being brainwashed. Willie, go kick rocks. Go kick a big ton of rocks. What do you mean by he was being brainwashed? Then come, I said. It will be good for you. Good for us. He never came. His strategy was patently obvious. I was unwell, which meant I was unwise. As if all my behavior needed to be called into question. I worked hard at keeping my text to him civil. Nonetheless, the exchange turned into an argument, which stretched over 72 hours. Back and forth we went, all day, late into the night. We had never had a fight like that over text before. Angry, but also miles apart. Let me continue. That was a phone call there I couldn't take. Angry, but also miles apart, as if we were speaking different languages. Now and then I realized that my worst fear was coming true. After months of therapy, after working hard to become more aware, more independent, I was a stranger to my older brother. He could no longer relate to me, tolerate me. Or maybe it was just a Or maybe it was just the stress of the last few years, the last few decades, finally pouring out. I save the text. I have them still. I read them sometimes with sadness, with confusion, thinking, how did we ever get here? In his final text, Willie wrote that he loved me, that he cared for me deeply, that he would do whatever is needed to help me. He told me to never feel any other way. Really? I know there has to be deep love between them because they are brothers. When their mom died, they had only each other to lean on. But also, there is some sort of negative undertones there. And that also came, guys, from their upbringing. Remember, I don't think that the palace had very high expectations of Harry, but they had very high expectations of William from the time he was born because he's the heir. So, because of that, Harry could get away with just wearing a button up shirt. William, on the other hand, had to be jacketed down all the time because he's supposed to be the representation of the monarchy from the time he was born. So can you imagine the stress that he has been under? And then here comes, maybe William is in his heart, he's not racist, but the institution in which he was born and raised has maybe not directly, but indirectly steered him towards seeing white people, seeing people of his kind to be more superior, because that's exactly what the monarchy is. A group of people who view themselves as more superior to being superior to other races, and particularly black people who they have pillaged and robbed to elevate themselves to that statue that they now claim. They don't want to be seen as equals. They don't even want to breathe the same breath. Have you ever seen the queen without her gloves? She ain't shaking your hand without a gloved hand, without her hands being gloved, because she don't want to touch you, because you all are not her equal. So imagine Harry hugging people, kissing ordinary people he don't know from nowhere, laughing and chatting and dancing with them and enjoying their culture. Imagine that. Do you all understand now why he is being treated like the quote unquote black sheep in his family? Imagine that. But that's going to be it from me for today, my friends. Yes. I thank you all so much for coming in, and my hip just walked in. My hip just sauntered into the chat. Kat, good morning, my love. How are you doing, my darling? How are you doing? So good to see you in the chat. Guys, that is going to be it from me for now. We are going to be back here tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning? We're going to try. We're going to try to be here again tomorrow morning when we will continue the reading of the book Spare, written by Prince Harry. When we come back tomorrow, we will move on to chapter 72 of part 3. I hope you all enjoy the reading as much as I enjoy bringing it to you. That's we certainly not now, Cad. Certainly not now. Until next time, my friends, this is Trev from Treversant, where your journey matters. Now have yourselves a great Thursday, everybody.